Welcome back to the Squawk Global Experience. I'm Kyle.
And I'm Emily.
Last month, Parrot Partners Canada was featured on CTV as the largest parrot rescue in Eastern Ontario. Before we jump in, here's the news segment that inspired this episode.
Hi, Sammy.
It's snack time, and at 71 years old, it's a routine Sammy knows by heart. He came to Parrot Partners Canada after outliving his original owner, and now calls the rescue home along with 54 other aging and surrendered birds. She says it's a crisis quietly unfolding across the country as rescues like hers struggle to keep up. The issue? Parrots can live a long time, some up to 80 years. But as caregivers age out, rescues are shrinking, compounded by a shortage of avian veterinarians. And unlike cats and dogs, there's no safety net when owners can no longer care for them, even as parrots continue to be bred and sold in pet stores, some for thousands of dollars.
We're still dealing with birds that were bred in the 70s and 80s. They're still in the system, and we're still pumping out new birds.
This is April, a 30-year-old African gray who could live another 30 years. That's why the organization is testing a 3-year pilot project, the first of its kind, to see whether having a plan, a guaranteed place to go, and early support can stop the parrot crisis from worsening.
Under the pilot, adopters would pay a $20 monthly fee, helping cover ongoing support, education, and boarding, with the guarantee the parrot can return if it can no longer be cared for. The goal? To keep parrots in one stable place for as long as possible, giving more parrots like Sammy a soft place to land well into their golden years. Caitlin Wilson, CTV News, Carleton Place.
Hi, Judy. Welcome to the Squawk Global Experience. We are really excited to have you here today, and we'd love to learn more about you. So tell us who you are and what it is that you do.
Thanks for having us, by the way. We really appreciate the opportunity to talk about these things because they're really important. My name is Judy Tennant. I'm the founder and executive director of Parrot Partners Canada. Before I founded Parrot Partners, I worked it's a branch, it's called organizational development, and I did it for corporates. I used to work for Nortel and Pfizer and various global corporations. Our job was to anticipate what would make our humans less effective. And on the other side, what would make our humans more effective? Of course, in a corporation, the goal is to make as much money as possible. How do we teach them? How do we modify behaviors? How do we put in habits? All different elements of human nature. So I bring my behavior modification expertise. When I retired, I transferred it over to parrots. But I still have that corporate mindset and that scanning the horizon for where are the problems and how is it going to affect the running of this facility or this corporation or whatever it is. Because of that background, there are some well-known issues coming down the pipe. I now look at it from how does this affect our facility? How does that affect our parrots? Or any parrots, and what are the larger industry-wide, if you will, implications of this? It's a rare kind of expertise to have sort of dropped into the parrot world and starting to run a rescue. There are some things coming down the pipe, and the whole rescue sector is not ready for it.
When you say people aren't ready for it, that means that you see a bigger crisis at hand than most people even are seeing. So when you say that, what does that look like? What does that mean?
We used to joke, and still do, that the baby boomers retiring out was the slowest crisis in the world. And somehow, even being the slowest moving crisis, we knew this in the 60s that this would happen, right? And here we are, how many years later, decades later, and we find ourselves unprepared. So we'll just take this one element of what's happening and how that creates a knock-on effect. And we're starting to see it now. Whenever the baby boomers retire out, we get from a ownership perspective, we get a shift in parrots. So baby boomers die or they get elderly and have to move into a nursing home. So that's going to trigger a shift. You can expect that happening in pockets and increasing, and it's starting to increase now, those shifts. And that's a single shift. And the bird is either going to shift to a rescue or it's going to shift to a relative. It's basically one or the other, a rescuer or a relative, or is going to be sold on Kijiji, which is like another. But that bird is going to shift. And if it shifts to a rescue, that creates an influx pressure of birds coming in. If it shifts to a relative and people think, oh, thank goodness, he's safe in little Janie's hands, but little Janie figures out, I can't do this with children. And I got another aging set of parents over here, there's another shift. It creates an instability. There's that happening. Yes. And it's going to keep happening. The bigger is when founders and rescue proprietors, they check out, because that's a massive shift now. Because how many birds do they have? It could be anywhere from 10 to 50 to 100. That's an issue. That's a massive shift. And when those shifts happen, and I'll talk about the other things that are happening as it knocks on, there's a domino effect where it's all hitting one another. So we get the shifts of individual birds. We get the bigger shift of facility level birds. So those have to get repositioned and absorbed somehow in the system because they're moving. And if they're under stress, they're more likely anything that is sitting dormant. Any illnesses are going to crop up. That's why we put them in quarantine for 30 days because of that stressful period. We're going to get more birds under stress, more birds having pathogens come to the surface. So you would then take them to the vet, but the baby boomer vets, they're moving out as well, right? And the avian vets are retiring, and we're not seeing a backup by the next generation of taking those on. Wow. There's a shortage of avian veterinarians everywhere. That was normal. It's getting much worse.
Ooh.
Right?
Wow.
So now we've got birds moving, birds under stress, need the avian vets. The vets aren't there. And we're starting to experience that now as well. And then also with the baby boomers, we start to find hoarders because the baby boomers are getting sick. All of a sudden there's an ambulance and then somebody goes in and says, oh my God, I had no idea that grandpa had 75 birds. And grandpa's got 75 birds because there were nobody really being able to take them, right?
Yeah.
So grandpa's thinking he's doing a good thing, or grandma, and she's stepping in. But now they're in the hospital because they're elderly. So we're getting more pressure on animal welfare to be able to come in. And then animal welfare pivots and says, where are my rescues? Right? Where do we, and how do we vet these birds, right? And so you can see these knock-on domino effects, right, start to happen. And you need stability in any system. Stability is worth its weight in gold. And we're moving into a very unstable environment, not just for baby boomers. This is just one element. I hate to be really, right, to have you guys walk away from the podcast going, oh my God, we're doing
No, this is amazing because we didn't have any idea of this. We obviously knew there was a crisis, but we didn't know it dates back to the baby boomers with the birds, and then the birds need to be rehomed. And now we have the issue with online birds.
Yeah.
And how many more people are getting them for entertainment purposes? Yeah. You know, we're part of the cause.
Prepared.
We're not prepared. No one's prepared. And I didn't even think that knock-on effect.
Yeah.
When you were on the news, it struck me because these parrots that were born in the 70s are still in the system. And I don't think people, when they say, oh, these parrots live a long time, that number does not register in their brain.
The implications of that, it's not just a fun fact. There are
Right.
multiple implications of this, which dogs and cats and pocket rabbits, they're not going to experience. And we still have birds being bred and pumped into the system. So
Right.
we've got at least a 6-decade responsibility. Even
Wow.
if we stop the inflow now, we still have to have a stable system to usher in those final, and you know that it's not going to stop. We got the vets retiring. So that's the baby boomers, roughly. Bang, 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 bang. You see all these knock-on effects. Now we start to get into the instability that's in the economic environment. And we all know this, we're living it. Our training, my training, and then our board has all different disciplines. I love my board because they never thought they'd be doing this for parrots. They laugh. Never in a million years did I think I'd be, well, here we are. Let's do it.
Right.
We know there's a lot of economic instability. We're living it. What rescues are starting to see now, you're going to start to see more and more urgent calls for money, urgent calls for donations. And what's happening is, okay, we got this baby boomers starting to create these ripples and how are we going to handle it? But because inflation and the cost of living is being driven up,
Yeah.
rescues can't increase their revenues fast enough to meet inflation. So everything they use, from pellets, their lights, their insurance, everything goes up, including vet care. And even if you can find an avian vet, it is on average 3 times more expensive than that of a dog or a cat.
For sure.
And we have VCAs, venture capitals, moving into veterinary medicine, right?
Yep.
And whenever you combine for profit, driving for more and more shareholder value, they automatically raise the prices of everything and they start the upsells. And they will start, no, you can't have that Medicam, which is a very benign medicine,
Yep.
until I do a complete,
Yes.
with
Musical exam.
ultrasound, with some panels, with
Yes.
right? And you can't blame the vets because the vets are getting pressures from the owners and the owners are not there. And I know I'm going to get pushback. Come at me. The owners are not there for the benefit of the animal. The owner is there for the benefit of the stockholder. That is more and more money. Stockholders demand more and more. That just has this cannibalizing effect, especially when you're dealing with a not-for-profit, a charity. We've got all of this instability, and rescues aren't able to do what they're supposed to do, which is care for that animal.
Yeah.
Parrots are harder to place, much harder to place than a dog or a cat.
100%.
I know, we're almost stunned, right? But it's true. It's very, very true. Because we've grown up with dogs and cats. Everybody knows the education requirement gap is very small compared to a parrot. Anybody who was a first-time owner, that's when they go, oh my goodness.
Guilty. Yeah.
Guilty.
Yeah. Holy Toledo, is this different? And then every first-time owner goes, I don't know what I'm doing.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
But you didn't know what you didn't know when you got into it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So it's harder to place them because people think, oh, yeah, sure, I'll give that a shot. And they don't want to do education before. Because adults learn through experience. It's in time learning. We learn as we do. But that's very dangerous for a bird.
Agreed.
Right?
Completely.
So much more sensitive, and you can kill them so much easier.
Everything kills them,
Yeah.
and people don't know that.
We had to change our whole lifestyle to
Yeah.
how we cook things, to what we use in our kitchen.
To guests coming around saying, you can't do this, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Oh, Mum, I want to cook for you. Well, you can't cook with this, you can't cook with that.
Yeah,
Don't
we-
light a
Yeah.
candle.
Yeah, we had to get
Yeah,
all
sorry.
rid of our pots and pans, get rid of
Ugh.
every cooking thing. When somebody buys us, at Christmas, a new pot, we're like, thanks, but we're going to have to
Thank
return
you.
that because it has Teflon in it, so we cannot use
Yeah.
that in our home.
The education gap is massive, and any rescue placing ethically knows that. So our job is actually to slow people down, which means
Mhm.
that you're caring for the bird longer. Just like any dog or cat rescue, and if you talk to the SPCAs and humane societies, it is we need kennels open because more are coming in. But you can't do that with a bird. Now, it depends if the facility is going to succumb to that pressure. And if they are, all they're doing is flipping the bird. And I know other rescues are going to be upset hearing me. I need them to understand that I am on their side. We are you. We are doing what you do. We are you. And we understand the pressures. But when you flip a bird and then you say, call me if anything goes wrong. And then you go back to the fire, trying to put that fire out, which is never
Yep.
going to go out. That bird ends up getting rehomed. The critical period is 3 years. Generally, it's around, that people say can't. I gave it my best shot, can't. So it's in that first 3 years that bird and the percentages sort of go down. So the bird will be flipped out again. This is very stressful for them. There's a few studies, and they were done with African greys, that measured the telomere length. The telomere is the tail end of the DNA. And when under stress, even with humans, that tail gets shorter and shorter and shorter, right? That stress is killing them. The shorter the tail, the more things that are going to start going wrong. And when the bird is under stress, and rehoming is one of the most stressful events for them. When we have birds jumping, 2 homes, 3 homes, 5 homes, 6 homes, this is not unusual to see a bird with 7 to 8 homes. This
Right.
is not unusual. We are killing them. We are killing them with the stress of the situation. We've got rescues getting this pressure. We've got birds. We've got inflation. And the rescues are pressured then to cut corners. And if there's already no vets, hard to get a vet, don't have the money, we just won't test. And there's no vaccines for parrots. So we just won't test. The bird looks fine. Let's keep going. Right. And what we end up doing then is, because we've amassed birds all together, we haven't quarantined, we haven't tested, and we are beginning to be the epicenter of a bio outbreak. Because the bird's like going into a hospital. You're going to get more sick. That's why hospitals are
Yeah.
super, right? Because you're bringing
Yeah.
sick people all together, right?
Exactly.
The
Yeah,
same-
and just to throw in a fact so people can understand, the surgery outcome, they try to get you out as soon as possible. A lot of surgeries are day surgeries now because it's healthier to recover in your own home than being a sick place. So very similar
Exactly.
then.
Exactly. It's exact same principle. So
Mm.
here, birds that didn't have any pathogens, you were pressured to bring them in. You didn't do testing. You didn't do quarantine. Now, instead of having one bird with the pathogen, now we potentially have 10, 15. And they're going out and they're moving. And that's just one. We cut corners. That's just one. So there's inflation. There's the baby boomers moving out. And I hate to be more to have you go like, oh God, it's
Give it to
it's
us,
We
hopeless.
Judy.
need it.
Give it to us, Judy.
So yeah, give it. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
Go there.
Things that you wouldn't think of, but I'm trained to think this way. Climate change. How is climate change going to impact our, right? But I would be doing that if I was still back in my corporate desk, in my corporate office. I would still be going, well, how's that going to impact us? Everything, politics, how's that going to impact us? And always thinking of where and how do we respond before it gets out of control. That's what we want to do, is to be able to move and shift rather than just sit and let the bus run over us. Great. So
Right.
climate change, more dramatic events, more power grid blackouts up here in Canada in the middle of winter. And you have a blackout, you've got a problem. If you don't
Right.
have generators, you've only got so much time. Redundancies upon a redundancies if we're being super responsible. this all takes money. It takes money. It takes planning. There's power instability, more flooding problems in certain areas. That flooding is going to cause mold issues. It's just going to go knock on, knock on, knock on. And then the birds are more stressed because there's more expansion of parasites. I mean, again, like our food supply is sort of endangered. Don't want this to be political, but when Trump put on tariffs, anybody that was using Rowdy Bush or Harrison's, it wasn't cheap to begin with, but it's some of the best you could get. They're all American. Now we had Hagen here, right? Sorry, Mark, I'm not saying your pellet isn't great, but we've got other birds on and we're already struggling. Now it's going to make it even worse. We had a couple of conversations on our site when I posted, here's how you transfer your bird to another pellet if you can't afford this with the tariffs that are going to go on. And had Harrison's come in and say, don't come off of our pellets. And I'm saying, but what does a person do? Or what does a facility do?
Right.
If they already can't,
Afford.
you're just one little piece of the puzzle. Pellets are just this little piece. Now, it's an important piece, but it's still a little piece, right? Yep. And are we going to put parrots ahead of profits? And corporations hate hearing that.
Exactly. They're like, Judy, you're trying to kill our business.
We're killing us.
For money. We're here for
What are we? And they're saying we need money to do what we do. And we're saying, yeah, we need money to do what we do as well. And they don't like to hear it because we all have vested interests, right? But our advice to parrot owners is always have your parrot on a Canadian and an American or a Brazilian. Find out what you can in case there's a recall, or in this case, in case somebody decides to slap tariffs all over the place, right? Because then you can easily, with as little stress as possible, so do it ahead of time. We're always talking about do it ahead of time. Don't wait until the last moment. You can see all of these bang-on effects are starting to happen now. If you're not prepared, you're going to get caught. Insurance premiums going up, even if you're a home rescue. This is still happening. Your home insurance then is going to go up. We're a facility. We're a commercial facility. As soon as you're commercial, everything goes up 3 times. Doesn't matter, 3 to 4 times. There's more money to run a commercial facility than it takes to do a home. And we need both. That's the best way to go about this, is to have as stable commercial as you can get that are larger, and then have a network of home rescues. We look at this, we know that it's going to happen. And I say, why? That's partially why I got into this, is I'm neurodivergent. And one of the characteristics of my particular spiciness is a sense of justice, right? And don't like to see injustice. And I love all animals. But when I looked at parrots, I said, oh, you guys are getting a raw deal. You are getting such a raw deal, because all of the money, all of the infrastructure, all of the planning, all of the processes, it's all for dogs and cats, right? All of it. They chew up everything. And the third most popular pet, the third most popular companion animal, and I'll get pushback. People will say, nah, fish are number 3. Well, we don't call fish companion animals, sorry. And that data point that you're pulling from is from how many are purchased. It's from a retail tracking system. And not very many people purchase one guppy, right? So, of course, you're right. So we exclude them. Nobody says, I got to go home. My guppy's going to be lonely. Like, right? So,
so true.
Yeah.
They're not companion animals. So these are the third most popular companion animals. They live the longest. The only other potential companion animal which will outstrip them will be the tortoise. But we don't have 1 million tortoises in Canada. We do have 1 million parrots in Canada. So in and around there, we're not sure. And our infrastructure, which would be the Humane Societies, SPCAs, those large behemoths, that's what society counts on to keep our animals humanely cared for. They've turned their back on them. And for a lot of reasons, I work with them, I like them, I understand, because the same thing we're saying, they're special needs, they're highly expensive, and their staff does not have the training to
Yep.
care for them.
I did some research myself, and I looked at all our humane rescues to see if there was birds, because I wanted a volunteer. I wanted my kids to go in and volunteer. I didn't realize that fact, that they'd stopped doing that. So that's interesting to know.
Oh, wow.
Quietly. But what they'll do is they'll go to a rescue who's already, so they're the behemoths, right? They're the behemoths. They're multi-million-dollar charities, right?
Mhm.
No
Yep.
word of a lie. You can pull down our financials. You can pull down their financials. Every charity has to upload their financial
Yep.
reports.
Yep.
So you can see how much they get for donations, right? So these big behemoths take an exceedingly expensive and complicated wild animal, and they turn to rescues and say, will you take them? We'll give you $300. $300 won't even get you in the vet's parking lot.
And no,
You know,
you know
it
that for
won't.
sure.
It will not. You can park in their parking lot for $300, and that's it. You're not getting in the building. You're certainly not talking to them, right? You see the struggle with parrots. Everybody wants to just say, let's put them aside. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to recreate the Humane Society. If Humane Society isn't going to do it, the SPCAs aren't going to do it,
Yep.
then we're going to need to do it. And that's a massive undertaking.
Exactly.
Massive.
Yeah, I hear you on that, but what does that mean? Like, what does that entail, Judy? Because that sounds like a lot.
It is a lot. It is a lot. And sometimes I wonder, like, oh God, I could have had a retirement.
That's
But,
not happening.
I'm not turning my back on them. That's the thing about that injustice part.
Yep.
Like,
You can't
it's,
turn back, on something that has no voice. They cannot
Yeah.
scream out from the rooftops and say, "We need help."
And
We
Yeah.
have to be that
they
voice.
didn't ask for any of this
Yeah.
either, you know. This is
Right?
Yeah. People assume, the general public just assumes that our infrastructure that has been built will take care of parrots as well. And the answer is no, they're not. And one of the reasons is they're wild animals. Our mandate isn't for wild animals, right? But they're being bred and sold as a pet.
Yep.
So you see how they're falling straight down between the cracks.
Yep.
What we're going to need to do is to recreate the Humane Society, but specifically for parrots. And the first step in doing that is getting data. In Pfizer, they had a saying, data drives. Don't give me your opinion, show me the data. Because you can question data. You can say, where does this come from? What was that study based on? Was that study created? Is that a good study? Because not every study is a good study, right? You can wrap your head around, but you can't opinion, and you can't heart. I'm in this because of heart, but we're not doing enough brain in the sector. The first thing is to collect data. We're completely disjointed. We're all over. We've got different standards of care. We've got different processes. We don't know, for certain how many. Our best guess is a little under 1 million. I say 1 million, but it's our best guess. But we don't know. But we could get closer with a greater degree of certainty if we had a central depository from each rescue
Yes.
pumping into a main. And what that gives us, if we have a main repository of data, data is powerful. It
100%.
is real. That's when you start to get some gas in the engine,
Exactly.
right?
So true.
And because with that data, when you slice it and dice it, you can then turn to government agencies and say, here's the lay of the land, right? You can turn to the public and say, within this degree of certainty, this is what we see, and this is what we need. You can then lobby for changes to breeding. I'm not anti-breeder. And I can just see, breeders going, because I'm a realist. We're not getting them shut down cold tomorrow. That's
Right.
not going to happen.
Right.
But the best we can do is to say to the Association of Aviculture, and now I'm going to have the breeders on me. Sure, why not? Right? Is to say you need to do a better job tracking how many and of what species. And there's certain species that you need to stop or curtail. Because if you don't do it with us, it's going to be done for you.
Right.
And they're going to say, you guys are so disorganized. How are you going to take us on? We're organized. And, the fire in my belly is we're getting organized. We're getting organized.
Yes.
Come on board. And it might take a little while, but you've got a few real good resources working like demons in behind to get organized.
Yep.
And if you come along, it's going to be so much easier. If you don't, and you say, nope, unfettered breeding, we're not tracking how many, we don't care, we are going to pivot to our MPs, and we are going to start pushing. We already have a couple of lobbyists who are saying, yeah, I'm on this for you. This is my world. I work with these guys. We've got the list of animal-friendly MPs. We're going to start just like lobbyists for, energy and lobbyists for big oil. They work the system. We're going to start working the system. It's got to stop. The other thing that we need to do is we need to have a different model because our animals are so long-lived. The model that we have now, it was built for dogs and cats, and those assumptions don't work. The bird could have so many more homes than a dog or a cat would, and they move faster, they transfer faster, and they experience more stress. So we need a model that isn't adoption based, where it's a sale of a property. This is property. You now own it. Good luck. And we need somebody to be their almost fairy godmother all the way through and keeping eyes on them. If something should happen in that home, the bird comes back to grandma's house, right? Yep. The bird comes back, and then that knowledgeable facility makes the next placement if it is warranted. If the bird is not, they're very elderly or they're sick, then the bird stays with the facility, right? Yep. They retire so that we always know where our birds are.
Yep.
That's really expensive, that model. Hugely expensive. The only way we're going to be able to do that, we're not going to be able to do it. We've already talked about this by donations, because inflation, we've got to take a page from investors and corporations or insurance companies,
right,
where we use actuarial science. We've got that data that we pulled in. We're going to use it for political purposes, but we're also going to use it for ourselves to say, really, how long can we expect parrots to live? We're going to get that actuarial curve. Some are going to die in the first year, unfortunately. Some are going to live to 80. That's an outlier on the other end of the curve. But where's the bell, the middle, the mean? And what is that age? But we need data to be able to see, did the bird decease? Okay, at what age did the bird decease? And then track that by species. If we have a pot of money, we can invest that money just like an insurance company. And when we invest it, hopefully the returns on those smart investments, just like a pension plan, we call it a parrot pension plan, will keep track and hopefully go faster than inflation. And each bird has their own pot. So that if I have 50 birds I'm responsible for, or 100 birds, I better have a pot of money of X. Right? And when that bird comes back, and if it retires, Not a problem. We got you covered, just like insurance or a pension. You're going to retire now? Great. Here you go. We've got him covered for his vet. We got him covered for the food. So we don't have to have facilitators or rescue owners pulling their hair out going, I don't know how I'm going to. We need to give them some rest. We need to give the parrots some assurance as well. If we shift our model away from adoption, and if we have the larger facilities like the SPCAs with different branches running on this model and the small rescues, if you invest well enough, you can do some good things. You can do some really good things, but it has to be professionally managed. We don't manage it. There's professional money managers and there's legal around it. That will then help with the length of the animal, the complexity of the animal. And then people say, well, where are you going to get this big pot of money to invest? As soon as we have the data, even before, we're going to go to major patrons. And 100,000, 200,000 is not unheard of for them and their philanthropy. Not unheard of at all. A million in some of these cases is not unheard of at all in their philanthropy. So we start to do just like hospitals and humane societies. We're not going out on social media asking for, yay, we got $1,000.
Right.
We got to start thinking like corporations and the big boys and asking for those chunks of money and showing them that it's going to be professionally managed, probably with somebody that they work with themselves. This is how this model is going to work.
Yep.
We're doing a 3-year pilot. That's what we're piloting. So we're going to get the data. We're starting that. We're educating animal welfare professionals. We're starting that training. We just got a grant to help us with that. And that's going to help with the hoarders, finding hoarders, rescue collapse. It's going to help them on the front lines while we're collecting the data and we're starting to pull together. So we've got 3 years to see if we can't get a couple of major donors on board. I'm happy to say we've got one and we're talking. It's a major donor. We're talking. I don't know what we'll come to, but they're saying, I like the sound of what you're talking about.
Very cool.
Amazing.
I think our industry, if you will, has been given a process designed for dogs and cats, and birds don't fit in that design. And we're trying to do the best with it. If the design doesn't work, let it go. Take the best from it and create what does work.
Exactly.
It gives us the benefit of starting from a clean slate. So what is best? And then looking at what's coming down the pipe, how do we respond to this? And allows us to navigate that. But if we keep doing what we've always done, we're in trouble. And I don't want to be like a storm crow, but there's clouds. There's dark clouds on the horizon. And it's one thing to say, crisis incoming. You got to have a response for that crisis.
Exactly.
This is the best we could come up with. We'll open it to other minds, but we got to start having these conversations.
Absolutely.
It's so unspoken about.
Yep.
People are not aware of any of these facts.
And when they are, you're right, Judy, they're just not having the conversations of what do we do then? They're just hearing these facts and then they're like, okay, but what is the plan?
Well, yeah. And who's leading this?
Exactly.
It's not that we want to lead this. Like, we're running a rescue. I mean, this is a whole, we're running a rescue here.
You
right?
wanted to retire. Now you're taking on a whole.
This is more than a full-time endeavor.
Yes.
Right? On its own. It's stressful. We're lucky with our training, with our grant that we just got. It's only a small grant, but thank you, Animal Welfare Foundation of Canada. Big shout out to you guys. Thank you. We have Greyhaven in BC who has agreed to share data and to help us with the training. And with the training, what we're going to need is facilities that have birds across Canada, because we're training all animal welfare across Canada. And We have a saying, you can read a book on swimming and promptly go out and drown. There's one thing to get the intellectual, but
Yeah.
there's another thing to get the hands-on, right?
Very true.
Our training, it'll have module learning, individual learning, webinars, which are group, and then hands-on. But to do that with hands-on, we have to have facilities across Canada.
Yes.
Yeah.
We've got ours, we've got Greyhaven, and then we're looking for other facilities in at least one in each province.
Yep. Makes
Now,
sense.
not all animal welfare will be able to travel there, will want to travel there, but they need to know that if you can get there, they will do this hands-on for you. And you won't be sorry. You won't be sorry, because this is going to come back in spades for you, because this is picking up and we already see it. Animal welfare is already saying, yeah, we can see it. It is starting to pick up.
Mm-hmm.
Have I just made you guys?
No, this is exactly the conversations we want to be having.
Yes.
And this is exactly the things that we need people to know and understand, that it's not just a crisis within pets in captivity. It's an ongoing thing that's just going to get worse. And, we wasn't aware of the severity of it. And now we're just like, how do we help?
Yeah, exactly.
What can we do? And we want everybody that loves and cares for birds to be in the same mind frame and want to do something to help too.
Judy, you've been in this industry a long time and are the voice and that really good drive. And what we're good at is reach and reaching people on social media. And that is where we were like, we have a responsibility to use our platform to reach this, because this is not just a joke. We're laughing because it's a scary thing, and
It's a scary,
and
yeah.
it's a huge undertaking, and we're just laughing because we're just like, we know how this is gonna, like, we don't, like, this is a huge deal.
It is.
Yeah.
And I don't think we've told Judy, but we was the people that went to the pet store, saw a cute
Yep.
bird, uneducated.
That's how I started.
Yeah. And then it was through, we wanted to be the best bird parents, so we educated ourselves. And that's when we started to learn about rescues and how many are in. So we were like, we're going to save one bird. That's how we got Gizmo. And unintentionally.
And what a bird you got.
I know, what a
And it was
What a guy.
unintentional. We didn't plan out for him to be this funny guy that encourages people out to get more parrots.
yeah, we
Yep,
never.
yep.
And then we said, this is the year that we're going to make a difference, and we're going to use our
Great,
platform
great.
for good. We will still entertain people, but not as much. We want to use Gizmo as a voice, and
Right.
then that's what we're doing.
Yep.
We call it the Trojan parrot. I still go out to schools. I go to retirement homes, but we do it a little differently. And we do it to educate people on what is happening. And those events, even though we're using low neuroticism, like Gizmo is a little higher in neuroticism, but his social interaction is high. He enjoys it. He enjoys
does.
being the main character, right? Where other birds are introvert and wouldn't enjoy that at all.
Totally.
So we roll up like the Trojan horse, but we've got a heck of a lot of information in behind us. And we roll up with birds that are enjoying this. Those are training sessions for us. We teach people on how to train using positive reinforcement. Why is this important? We always travel with one bird that's learning. How are we going to ignore that or cut off reinforcement? And how are we going to reward the behavior that we want? So when the bird's quiet, we'll reward that. Or if the bird uses indoor voice, then everybody repeats back and the bird goes, I like that. Right? So there are ways of doing it so that you're not encouraging people to, I got to get a bird like that.
True.
Right? That you're not scaring them, but you're telling them, here's what's required. We need to put that safety net underneath them. That's us. That's on us to put that with our pilot. What we're looking for is, does this increase the time in home? Because as soon as we place a bird, we don't give up ownership. And a lot of people are like, what? But ownership is the adoption model. So we keep ownership, and the home, the placement, they pay a small monthly fee.
Mm-hmm.
This is just like a pension. just like insurance. You're paying for your bird's pension,
Yep.
right? With that small monthly fee. What that does for the rescue, it gives them a stable source
Yep.
of income so that we're not getting these wild swings. It helps with that. The bird we know comes back to us. That's legal. We have a better legal chance if somebody should balk because it's clear in our contract we did not give up ownership.
Yep.
And on the medical side, when a bird is sick and can't get in to see a vet, we've got an incubator, we've got oxygen concentrators, we've got 2 vet techs, we can do sub-Q, we can do gravage feeding, we can do the oxygen while we're looking like mad people to try to find a vet online. Because
Wow.
if we can't find one here, then we'll find one virtually.
Yep.
And then that buys us time, and time is everything when a bird is sick, right?
Mhm.
But the only reason we can do that gravage and oxygen and sub-Q is because we own the bird.
Right.
If we didn't own the bird, then we'd be practicing medicine without a license.
True.
We don't charge for it because that's still our bird, but we're the stabilizing bridge. We have to do that because you can't just let a bird die. You can't just say, no, sorry, it's Saturday,
Yeah.
your bird dies, right? The model's designed, everything I talked about, baby boomers, inflation, climate change, all of that. The model's designed to address those key points. But we have to do it different. We need that pot of money and we need people paying their insurance, but you're paying it for your bird. And then we do get some people, because it's so different, to say, well, wait a minute, if this bird could live for 30 years and I have it for 30 years and I'm paying $20, $25 a month, that's X amount of money. And then they get like, what? And then we show them our numbers. If you retire or you get sick and that bird has to stay with us, it's approximately $4,500 a year, costs us per bird, approximately.
Wow.
And we're going to have that bird for another 20 years.
Yeah.
So that 4,000 a year for
Yeah.
20 years, like, where's
Exactly.
this money coming from, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
you're paying your portion. The pot is trying to make as much more money as it can. And we're working like a demon on our side to have revenue streams to do ours. So everybody does their part, right?
Exactly.
And some people get it and other people say, nah, I'll just adopt it. It'll be okay. And we know it's not.
Yep.
We know it's not, right? The chances of a bird getting 6 great homes like yours in a row are very, very slim. 6 in a row, very, very slim
Mm.
And that has such an impact on them.
on
know.
them. Yeah.
On them.
We call it rehoming roulette. Every time a bird transfers, you're spinning the wheel. Are they going to land in a good home or are they not? And you might find a good home, like that facility did a great job finding you two. But what happens if you two get in an accident?
Exactly.
What happens then? Is that next home going to be just as good? Or
Right.
is it going to be only for a year and then they say, I can't, I've got kids, I've got sick parents. What about the next home after that and the next home after that? That's why they need a fairy godmother
Yep.
Yep.
all the way through. And good owners, and we call them placements or guardians, good guardians will say, thank God, that's something off my mind now. I don't have to worry about that.
Yep.
Thank goodness. And our job is to keep the facility working. So if everybody does their part, the facilities will be fine. But let's see. So what do
Yeah.
you guys think? Is it insane?
No. First of all, my thoughts are this is not just a domesticated animal. It is an exotic animal. If that takes, hey, now the new way about this is to pay a $20 fee a month,
Uh-huh.
where some people might be like, but it's not mine if I don't own it. It's like, yes, you are. You're the forever
Yeah.
home until you cannot be.
Till you cannot be, yes.
Yeah. But this is how you can give back. If you don't think that's okay, then maybe you might not be the right parent owner.
Exactly.
You might not be the right fit. Because if you are, you would be like, Great. I love this idea. Yes, I'm setting up that automatic deposit every month, $20, Judy. Here you go. So that way we can have a better future for this.
I would actually love it too, to know that I had a bird buddy or guardian that was always there, that I could ask questions or this isn't right, just to have that security of knowing that I'm not on my own on this, especially if I was inexperienced, but I loved them and I wanted to do the best I could. Any empathetic person that loves birds shouldn't have a problem with that.
Exactly.
Right.
I believe that there's situations sometimes where a parrot is rehomed to a family, let's say, and then they think, oh, I feel guilty for giving it back to the rescue center, so I'm going to try to go ahead and do my diligence to find a new home for them so I don't...
That I didn't fail. And we have to get our heads around this. This is not failure.
Exactly.
This is a safety net. This is what we're here for. This is not failure.
Right.
Right? Because life happens to humans. People get sick. People get injured. People get divorced. Life happens to humans. This safety net is there just for that reason. You didn't fail because life happened.
Right.
But you don't need to do this with dogs and cats. They're so much easier. They're so much easier.
Yep.
But we do need to do this with a complicated wild animal. It's funny, one of the screeners is when people say, I don't want to pay monthly. It's like you're not the right home.
Yep.
Exactly. There's so much more expense. Come on. They're not cheap.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, we offer boarding. And if you have one of our birds, you get discounts on boarding. We offer toy parts and toys. You get discounts on that. We're about to offer discounts on food. If your bird gets sick, that nursing care, if it's required, is free. So that alone, anybody who has had a sick bird, and I think Gizmo was ill a little while ago, wasn't he? Or
he had an accident, and so Gizmo couldn't
birds
fly.
have them.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, he can't
birds
fly. He got spooked and hit himself. He wasn't sick, but he wasn't himself. He wouldn't talk, and we took him to the vets. But accidents are huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it does have an impact on them because they're so much more sensitive, being prey animals, than a predator, a dog or a cat. In this model, you're getting this support and you're paying a fraction. When we have a guardian, we set up a 3-way text chain. So there's a behaviorist or trainer, there's a staff member, and there's the guardian. And we get texts all the time because that learning curve, now you're in it. Now you're in the water swimming. We're not just talking, right? We're not just doing a class now. Now we're actually doing it, right?
Right.
And so that they can text anytime. And that's 24 hours text support. And I get texts in the middle of the night. That's my job to get up when I hear it and say, yeah, what's happening? Doesn't happen often, but if it's there, you know somebody's there. Like he's on the bottom of the cage. Show me a video. Give me a video. Ding, ding, ding. Yeah, there's an issue. And that did happen. There's an issue. So this is what you're going to do. You're going to move the cage into the bathroom. You're going to turn on the shower. You're going to get a heater going in there. I'm coming with the incubator. I'm coming with the concentrator. Get the coffee on. I'll be there in an hour. So that level of support when you need it, right? For $20, $25 a month? Come on.
Unheard of. Exactly.
Plus you're paying into their pension. It's a different model. It's a harder model. But in this 3 years, if we can prove that we keep them in homes longer, and that we can guarantee that they're not going to be a burden on society, as in when animal welfare has to pull them out of a hoarding situation or a rescue collapse. If we can prove that, then we can start rolling the model out across. And we will give all of our tools. We will give to rescues. We will help set them up, right? We will do everything we can to help set them up so that we start to build those SPCAs for parrots across Canada.
That's great.
Right. So we got 3 years to do it. And if people want to help, we need help. We have to pay for our actuaries, which is a specialized mathematical insurance brokers and pension plans. They hire actuaries. They don't come cheap. We have to hire people to do the data, know what needs to be done, but I don't do data. I don't do details. I'm the bigger picture, right? So we need some really good data scientists, but we got to hire them to get the data in shape because it'll be coming in all different ways.
Yep.
So it's got to be
Mhm.
put into everybody's talking the same language, everybody's tracking the same things. We have to hire for that. With something like this, we could use a project manager. This is not a little endeavor that we're trying
Exactly.
to do,
No.
Exactly.
but somebody's got to jump off and do it. So,
Love that.
we're going to do it.
Me too.
Mhm.
My last and final question of this is, how can people support today? How can they get started to move this endeavor going? If they're listening to this and they're like, hey, I want to help support, where do they go and how can they do that?
We need really good, stable people who will not give up. First of all, that temperament. We need that temperament. You've got that temperament. I've got that temperament. If I latch on to something, a pit bull type of, you can't shake me off it, right? So we need people that don't give up when the going gets tough. And then we need that personality that has skill sets in either actuarial science. If we could get an actuary who would volunteer their
Right.
time, right? Or a project manager or a data analyst who would volunteer their time and had that temperament. Because the worst thing is somebody steps in and volunteers and then says, nah, I don't want to, I'm going off. And because that's very disruptive.
Yep.
We'll probably have to pay, right? So people could donate. And then we keep everybody involved, everybody up to date on what's happening. Even $5, a $5 monthly to this project.
Right.
And we keep track on how much is coming in and we report it back out. We're very transparent that way. That would help. That would help a great deal. Lobbyists, you can never have too many people working for you on the inside.
Exactly.
Right? So if there's lobbyists that people know, like, oh, my husband's a lobbyist, can you help us out?
Yep.
I think that's it. And send us positive vibes and encourage us. Like, it's okay.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Seriously, I'm so grateful to even have this conversation because we've been working with African greys becoming endangered and different types of crisis, but this is different and this hits really hard because this is not only the past, it's the present and we're talking our future now. We need to change this for sure.
Disruption in the environment is a disruption for them, and we need to have stable infrastructure. And we don't have stable infrastructure. Dogs and cats got stable infrastructure, right? Parrots don't, and that's a sin. That is a sin.
Yes.
Yep. Wow. This was a really deep conversation. I know people listening are probably walking away with a heavy heart, but it's the reality, it's the truth, and that's what we're trying to drive with Squawk Global is those real conversations with voices that can't speak for themselves. And that is exactly what we're doing here. And we're hoping that each one of these conversations leads to some good. All of you who are listening to this right now, if you could support in any way, like Judy said, even good vibes helps lift up the spirits and sharing this goes a long, long way. But if you can help with any financial, like she said, $5 a month can go so far. Or if you have the skill set or knowledge base to help, which after we hit end on this, I'm going to ask you a question on that because there might be an opportunity there for something that I'm working on could help. But if anybody has a mindset of this and knows how to support and give back their time into this, I'm sure you'd be completely grateful. And the parrots out there would be forever happy.
I've only met you today, but I cannot think of anyone better to lead,
Yes.
unintentionally lead this than you, Judy, because your energy,
Yes.
your passion just shows up with everything you say. I think good things will
We can
come.
do it.
We can.
We can do it. I think that's my message. We can do it. If everybody does their part and everybody gets behind this, it's done. It's a done deal. But it's when people say, yeah, okay, and then they don't. Then we start to splinter and we'll experience we won't experience, the parrots will experience
Exactly.
the results.
Yep. They're
Yeah.
the ones that experience the results at the end of the day. It's so true. So if you can make a small part, but you turn your back, you're turning your back on all these parrots that are just left,
A
to
million
fend for
parrots.
themselves.
1 million of Canadian parrots. And this is applicable in the States too. It's just that this is
100%.
It's
who we
around the
are. We'll
world.
start
Yeah.
this.
Yes,
We'll
exactly.
start this in Canada, but this is applicable across the world. But I
Yes.
can't think about that.
Exactly.
Yeah, that number is just astronomical.
Also, we like to say we're planting seeds now. So even if
Yep.
anybody is watching it, that, they can't help in any shape or form, have these conversations with people
Yep.
that might be
Yep.
able to help. And, and then that way the awareness is out there and
Mhm.
somebody might be like, what can I do?
I
Yeah.
can do, yeah.
That's
So
a
we
good
have a lot of explainer videos on our YouTube channel
Okay.
because I just gave you guys a fire hose of information, right?
Yes.
If people want to go there, there's all kinds of different explainers, right?
Okay.
And they're only about 5 minutes long. They're short. If people want to go there to think about it, but also share those videos and say, here's what's going on, and here's what this one pilot is trying to do. It's outrageous what they're going to try to do, but isn't that exciting? They're going to try to recreate the Humane Society for parrots. Like, that's
Right.
outrageous,
Right.
right? But that's how things get done.
Yep.
Exactly.
Exactly. That's amazing.
Yep.
hmm
Well, Judy, we could probably talk about this for hours
Yeah, I
and
know.
hours and hours. We're really excited, though, to get this information out to hopefully
Yeah.
help make an
Thank you.
impact and moving this forward and creating a Humane Society for Parrots.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that we look back at this conversation after it's done and say, wow, like that was one step that
Yeah.
we contributed to. That's what our goal would be with this.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We really,
Appreciate you. And this conversation right now may have ended, but is only just going to get started.
Begun. Yeah.
Yep.
We've only just starting. Yeah,
We just started.
definitely. Thank you for doing what you guys do. We really appreciate the opportunity to get the word out. It's sad, but it's exciting too.
yes.
Exactly. And we are here. Never, be afraid to contact us because
Yeah.
if we can do anything,
Yeah. We're, here.
even if I am a bird buddy, I'm not the best experience, but I can still be there.
No.
You
Yeah,
know?
no,
Mhm.
everybody brings something to the table. Everybody brings, it's like a stew. Everybody brings a certain flavor,
Exactly.
you know?
Yep.
Yeah.
So thank you. And anybody listening, I will have all of the information in the show notes and in the description, so you can go click those links directly over to help support. Judy, thank you again for being on the Squawk Global Experience, and I appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
Thank
I've
you.
loved
Thank you,
it.
guys.